G'day, welcome to the next episode of the Apprentice Toolbox. And today we're going to look at an app or a piece of software that I've been using now for a number of years and find very helpful. Now, when it comes to serious Bible study, you actually need tools that you can't really get for free. There are free Bible apps out there, and I've already highly recommended the YouVersion app, and there's a lot of great stuff on that. But when it comes to serious Bible study, you need things like commentaries and lexicons, and you need to be able to look at maps and a whole bunch of different things, and particularly tools that help with understanding what the intent of the original Greek was, or the intent of the original Hebrew was. And all that stuff is copyright. The only free tools in terms of commentaries and lexicons and that kind of thing. Here, trucks going on in the background. By the way, I'm speaking to you from our Lena Valley campus today. We normally record these at Mornington, but today we're at Lena Valley. The only free things that you'll find on the web, things like Matthew Henry's commentaries or some of the original Greek or Hebrew tools, are very, very out of date in terms of the latest biblical scholarship and archaeology. A whole lot has happened really over the last 60 years in biblical scholarship, for a number of reasons, one of which was the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but also the way that biblical scholarship has developed. So we have more and more original manuscripts and a better and better understanding of the original Greek and Hebrew. And so very helpful tools. But as I said, the only way to really get access to that is to pay for them. Now, that you then have two options if you're going to pay for them. One is to pay for the physical books. If you're going to get a decent set of commentaries, you're probably going to be up for about $1,000 or more, actually, for a series of commentaries. That's one series of commentaries for all the books of the Bible. And there are some good ones out there. I would recommend particularly the NIV application commentary is a good one. The Pillar, that's mainly New Testament commentary. Word, the Anchor Bible series. There are a whole bunch of them, and I'd really recommend you do some research when you come to commentaries and work out which ones you're going to trust. But generally speaking, the cheap ones are the cheap ones. If you're going to buy something cheaply, they're usually one-volume commentaries written by one person, whereas the multi-volume commentary sets are usually written by people who have got expertise and history with that particular book of the Bible on the particular issues surrounding it. So that's why they tend to be more expensive. So that's one option for you. But a better option, certainly for me, is to buy a digital version of these tools. Now, when it comes to buying a digital version of these tools, there are basically three major options. There is the Logos software package, there is the Accord software package, and then there is their little brother that I recommend, and it's the Olive Tree Bible software. Logos and Accord are expensive, and usually when you buy a subscription, you get a whole bunch of resources with it. So if you can afford the $2,500 up front or whatever you need, then you'll get lots of commentaries, all kinds of things. But if you, like me, are operating on a budget, then that's where Olive Tree really comes into its own. Also, the fact that Olive Tree is available on lots of different platforms. So are the others, but particularly Olive Tree started as a mobile phone app back with BlackBerries, I think, from memory, and then transported itself onto computers, whereas the others started as computer apps and then went the other way. So Olive Tree is coming from a very different angle. And why I like it is they have fantastic sales, where last week, well, actually right now, this is one of their big sales on at the moment. One of the reputable Bible commentary sets, there you go, is the New American Commentary New Testament set, 18 different volumes. Normally, digitally, is $349, but today is $70. Now, they often have sales like that where you can get commentaries and Bible tools for 60, 70, 80% off the price. Now, that's one thing. They're cheap, so they make that for me as a bargain hunter and someone on a budget is why for me it's very important. The other thing is that they have most of the major commentary series available. They have most of the ones you'd want, and most of the other tools. So the way Olive Tree works is, this is the standard Olive Tree app. You'll see I've got it on my iPad and on my computer here. I also have it on my phone, which is really helpful, because what it means is, like for instance, I was in at a hospital yesterday visiting someone, and she had questions about the Psalms, and I was able to pull it up and look, okay, this is what the original Hebrew says, because it's with you wherever you go. So some of the tools, they do have free tools, like you can get the basic NIV Bible, I think generally free, but many of the Bibles are available for a small price. The particular tools that I find helpful, as I've already talked about commentaries, so you'll see for me, the commentaries, this is my commentaries section here, and the way it organises itself is a resource guide. So whenever you look at a particular, like right now in church we're studying Ecclesiastes, and it organises itself, so it gives me all the particular commentary entries for this passage of the Bible. So it puts all the commentaries together, and it is context sensitive. Now, this is all my commentaries here. I've got the Expositor's Bible Commentary. It's not a bad one. And I got that very cheap. The New Bible Commentary is a cheaper one, but it's a smaller single or double volume one. The NIV Commentary series, I've got both the Old and the New Testament. Really value that one. Tyndale Old Testament and New Testament series, they're okay. I don't love them, but they're useful references. The Word Biblical set, commentary set, is a pretty reputable one. I also have the Pillar. At this stage, we're looking at the Old Testament. So if I look at the New Testament, you'll see that the range of commentaries changes. A very helpful tool is the commentary on the New Testament use of the Old Testament. And so you'll see a whole lot of things where the New Testament is referencing the Old Testament, and we just miss it because we are Westerners and haven't grown up with the Old Testament in the same way the Jewish tradition did. So that really is a very helpful one. And as I said, the Pillar New Testament series I find particularly helpful. As I said, I just purchased the New American Commentary series, and I think that that's the majority of them. For me, the most trustworthy commentary from series generally for the New Testament is Pillar, but the new NIV application commentary is a close second for me. And the Word Biblical one is more technical. It goes into all the Greek and Hebrew more specifically, and I'll use that. It's a little less accessible, but I'll use that in that way. So there's some of the very helpful tools, the commentaries. But for me also, the question of what does the original Greek and the original Hebrew say? There are two tools, if you're interested at all. Like I did a little tiny bit of study in the original languages, but I am by no means a Greek or Hebrew scholar. But I am so grateful to have these two tools, which are universally understood to be the kind of the leading edge, or the ones the most trustworthy. One is, so we'll pull it up here. If I pull up my library, so here's all the different. I've got quite a few different things here, but the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, otherwise known as Halot, is the gold standard at the moment in Hebrew and Aramaic. And so in terms of understanding what the original means in the Old Testament, that would be the book you go to. In terms of the Greek, this Greek-English lexicon of the New Testament and other early Christian literature, that's a very big mouthful, isn't it? But its acronym is BDAG, which stands for the authors. The original authors were Danker, Bauer, I forget someone. That's if you ever do any kind of study, you'll see the references Halot and BDAG. That's what they are. And where they really become useful is where I've got what they call an NIV word study Bible. So what that means is I can click on any word. There's Jesus' name, and it's interesting here. The NIV inserted the word Jesus to the Greek word autos, which means him, or anyway. As I said, I'm not a great Greek scholar, but you can see where the Bible's taking choices, or the translations are taking different choices. And that tells you a lot. So by having this kind of word study Bible, and I've got an ESV and an NIV that do the same thing, that means you can just you can press on any word and the original Greek of that word that's behind that word comes up. For me also, when I'm doing this kind of study, I will also go to my ESV Interlinear Bible, which so I have. What it does is you have the Greek word, what its reference is, but then you also have the ESV version of what the Bible is saying. So you can get a sense of what it is. And so you see, for me, there's a whole bunch of things. What makes this powerful is this resource guide. That means whatever verse you're looking at, you have all the relevant resources available to engage with it. And there's also on there different topics like apostles. We're looking at Matthew chapter 9 there. Ministry, obedience. There's also outlines of different books or introductions. And of course you can highlight or use any different tools. So I tend to stay with Gem for Bible study. In our church, we generally use the NIV, so I generally do most of my study in that. But I'll tend to stick with the NIV. But you'll find, if I come back to, where are we? I come back to Ecclesiastes, where we're working. It just means, you'll see I highlight as I go. I can highlight things on my phone, and the highlight turns up, or make notes on my computer or on my iPad, and it becomes a whole system for studying the Bible and getting a clearer sense of what the original text actually means. Like I said, it's not cheap, but because Olive Tree have specials, this is probably, I think it'd be safe to say about $10,000 worth of Bible study tools, and I would not have paid $2,000 over the last 6 years for that. I would have gradually got some of the commentary series on special, and I paid a little bit more for some things, but a handy household hint is usually their big specials come in just after Christmas. So around the Christmas New Year period, be watching if you're going to head down this path, and Olive Tree will often have specials available. Their interface, by the way, is getting better and better. They are, as I said, they started out as a mobile phone app, and they are much improved as a computer app, and so they are quite comparable. They're not as powerful as your Logos or your Accord software, but it does everything I could possibly want as a pastor. And anybody who's serious about Bible study, you need these kind of tools. So it's one of those things where I would recommend, if you want to take it seriously, check it out. if you are the sort of person that prefers a physical commentary set, that's fantastic. I just can't afford to do all that, so that's why I've gone digital. But also for me, what it means is, this is probably at least 50 kilos worth of books, which means I have them with me in my phone and wherever I go, and wherever you go, you have access to the resources, which is the other, in terms of not only price is the benefit of the digital, but the fact that it's with you all the time and it's not so heavy, and it's much more accessible. And often I'll be in my quiet time, I'll be reading, okay, that doesn't sound, I'll read a verse that seems a bit strange. It means it's very easy for me just to go straight to that verse, look at the commentaries specifically talking about that verse, and get a clearer sense. And the number of times for my own personal benefit, finding, okay, this is what this means. Oh, that's really helpful. And it benefits me in my own personal quiet time quite significantly. So that's it's a bit longer than usual when it comes to these things, but in order to give you a bit of an overview, I thought I'd need to give you a bit of an overview. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff there. You can find Olive Tree on the web at olivetree.com, and you can find them in every... they're available on Android, Kindle Fire, they're obviously Apple, iOS, Mac, Windows, you name it, and you can get it. And they'll often have these sales on, which is why they are, from my end, as someone on a budget, this is why Olive Tree became so useful. I ended up, now that I've got so many resources, I would be interested in making the switch to something like Logos or the Accord software series, but in order to get the same amount of resources for the price for Logos, is very, very expensive. So probably the interface of Accord and Logos are more advanced, but this certainly does all that it needs to, at least for me. So that's the Apprentice Toolbox for this week. I hope you hope at least found it interesting, and for me, this is a tool that I use most days and certainly every week as I seek to understand the Bible. It's the Olive Tree software. Until next week, we'll see you later.